This is Stephen C. Foster Park, and we are rolling with the stones. We were able to find the park online at www.gastateparks.org. We came across this location through Google.
GAStatePark.org was easy to navigate, but it did reroute you to Reserve America to make reservations. Reserve America was an easy site to use. You plug in your specifications and it finds a site that fits your needs. Reserving a campsite in Georgia is not site specific, meaning that you have a space reserved but get to choose a site once you arrive. This campground offered back-end sites as well as pull-through sites. There are also tent sites available. You can also call 1-800-864-7275 for reservations. The maximum stay for this campground is 14 days.
The check-in time is around 1 p.m. as well as the check-out time. You do have to check in at the office in Trading Post before occupying a site. At the time of check-in, you will also be charged a $5 entrance fee into the park. Checking out does not require you to go back to the office. You just have to vacate your site by 1 p.m., where you may be charged for the extra day. There is RV parking available across from the park office, as well as ample room to be able to turn around your rig.
They do accept cash and credit card. If you reserve a site, you will have to pay a minimum of one night up front to hold the spot, and the rest can be paid upon arrival. The park gates do close and open on a time schedule, so there's no code available to open the gates at other times. At the time that we visited, the gates opened at 7 a.m. and closed at 10 p.m. The park office hours are 8 a.m. to 5 p.m.
When we first arrived to the campground, it was very full, but did empty out most of the way after a few days. We arrived on December 31st and left January 12th. According to the camp host, the campground is usually very busy, but was not as full during our stay due to the unnaturally cold weather, including an ice storm.
Typical rules apply here, such as fires only in fire pits, and that you are not to damage any of the trees or property. A full list of rules are available at the park office. Quiet hours start at 10 p.m. and end at 7 a.m. Bicycles are allowed in the park, but rollerblades, skateboards, and scooters were not permitted, as well as other motorized vehicles. Children under the age of 16 are required to wear a helmet while riding a bike, according to Georgia law. Pets are permitted in the park, but must be on a leash. Alcohol is only permitted on your site. The maximum number of people allowed to stay at the site is 6, and the vehicle capacity is 2. One tent is allowed to be erected on an RV site.
The site pad consisted of dirt and grass. Most sites were close to level, but would still require at least a little leveling of the camper. The roads leading into the park and outside of the campground area and inside of the campground area were paved with a minimal amount of potholes and bumps. The sites are decently sized with vegetation growing between the sites as separators. The different sized sites were spread out throughout the park, so they were not all clumped together, and they were marked with a number and a color referencing the maximum size of the site. Handicap sites are also available, but do require a placard to occupy the site.
The cost per night for tent only is $28, and pop-ups, trailers, RVs are $35 a night. The campground had 2 comfort stations that consisted of a place to sit, bathrooms with hot showers, and a washer and dryer. The laundry facilities were priced between $1 and $1.50 per load. There are trash cans available throughout the park, but at the time of visiting, recycling cans were not available. The bathroom and showers were very clean and were cleaned daily by the camp host. There is also a store, the Trading Post, located at the park office that does offer snacks and some camping items as well as clothes and souvenirs. There were 3 camp hosts as well as multiple park rangers living on the property. Each campsite does include water, electricity, and cable hookup. There was also an electric vehicle charging station available at the park office.
You could also purchase wood at the park office, but it was also okay to gather wood from around your site and use that in the fireplace as well. The park offered a wide variety of activities such as trails, boat tours, as well as bike and boat rental. They also had a playground, horseshoe pits, volleyball net, and covered and non-covered picnic areas. They do offer other park ranger guided programs, as well as the junior ranger program.
The Junior Ranger program was really nice in that it allowed your kids and you to go out and really explore everything in depth and learn more about the environment. But they did have specific rules about not removing any items. So if you found something pertaining to one of your pages, they recommended taking a picture. The only thing that they had was one activity, with, including pine needles, where they allowed you to tape them on there if you wanted to. They were very easy activities. There were different levels, and at the end, your kids earned a patch for finishing the workbook.
And as well as the campground, they also have cottages or cabins, which, if you're looking at the video, that's where we're driving through at the current moment. And they have 9 of these that are available to be rented.
The park does not have Wi-Fi available, and cell service is very limited. For us using the Sprint service, we were unable to make calls or use data. Occasionally, you'd bump into roaming, and you could get maybe a text message, but it was very, very seldom. We were told and shown that Straight Talk Wireless did work in the park, but we had to drive significant amount to even get service. The dump station, though, is located inside the campground and is free to use for campers. There is not a water fill station located at the pump station, only for water for flushing your black tank. There were no rules posted referring to gray water.
Some of the wildlife that we saw included deer, alligators, migratory and native birds, wild turkey, snakes, and even a bobcat and a turtle. There were signs posted throughout the park of the different animals that you may encounter during your stay. We were also told that there were bears and raccoons, but did not see any during our stay in the park.
There were also lots of signs posted stating that you were not to harass, feed, or otherwise menace the alligators. And when we were here, at first we didn't see any because it was cold, but once it warmed up, we averaged around 3 very large gators and around 27 plus baby alligators just in the little boat area. They didn't really seem bothered by the boats or anything, and they were pretty chill for alligators, I guess. But there were a lot of alligators and a lot of signs posted to leave them alone.
And there is no fee for the boat ramp itself if you come in to use it, but you still would have to pay the park entrance fee in order to use it, which is only a $5 fee.
As of trying to get supplies, like we stated, the trading post had a small amount of snacks, a couple of refrigerated cases. But they really didn't have a lot of like groceries, so you really needed to bring all that with you. Currently, there is absolutely nothing nearby. The campground is located down a 17-mile road. The nearest town, Fargo, is about 20 miles from camp and does have a small cafe with great food but limited hours, and it has Wi-Fi. There is also a gas station with Wi-Fi and a post office in town. The gas station does have a little convenience store, but the prices were kind of high, so if you're trying to shop every day or every couple of days, it can get pricey really fast. The next nearest town is Homerville, and they had a grocery store that was pretty sizable. They had a couple dollar stores and some other small shops. They had a medical facility there, but it's approximately 55 miles from the park. And there's Valdosta, which was around almost 70 miles. There are 2 helicopter pads in the park if there is an emergency and medical treatment is needed.
Overall, we were very happy with our stay, and we would stay in this park again.
The kids had a great time here. We had a good time here. It's very quiet. There's very little light pollution, and so you can see the stars really nicely at nighttime. It did rain a lot while we were here, but it wasn't so bad that it was, real muddy and mucky. I say overall it was a pretty good stay. Can't really complain when most of the time it was around 60 degrees in the middle of winter. So, but yeah, I definitely recommend this as a campground to stay. And if we come back through Georgia, we'll probably stay again.
And all the sites are first come, first serve. So, as you can see from the video, there are 2 separate areas in the campground that you can go to. The first is the first 26 sites, and then you have the rest of the sites to the other direction. And to the left, there are smaller sites, and to the right, there's mostly bigger sites. But there are tent sites sprinkled throughout the whole thing, just as well as there are RV sites throughout the whole park. The pull through spots do go pretty quickly, so if you're looking at getting one of those specifically, it's first come first serve, so you may or may not get one.
Even the back end sites, though, we got one of the largest, which was a 50-foot site, thinking that we would need the extra room to accommodate our tow vehicle um, as well as our camper. And it says it's up to a 50-foot site. And we found that it was actually really big. And we saw similar vehicles and their rigs, and they were on much smaller sites. There's no real price difference between the smaller sites and the bigger sites, but we did find that we really like the more room, just in case, since they are first come first serve. We don't know how close we are to our neighbors, and sometimes we like to be able to let the kids have some extra space or just to have some wiggle room for us. But we definitely could fit into a smaller site. These sites were very, very large and generous, I thought. Um, and there was plenty of room, and they were, for the most part, kind of level. I mean, and they didn't get super muddy or mucky when it rained, so we didn't have to worry about sinking or moving the vehicles or anything too much.
And as you can see, us driving through, there were some puddles because it was currently raining when we were filming this, even though this was a very light rain. It did rain a couple of the days that we were there, but still nothing got so soggy that it would sink in the dirt or anything like that. Um,
We were pretty happy with the overall experience there, especially the paved roads were kind of nice. We've been on some places where the roads aren't paved, and it does make it a little bit tricky with potholes and things like that. Um, but the campground was very clean, very well maintained. Um, we were pretty happy, and the kids were happy. They got to see deer all the time out there grazing. I think even in some of the video, you can see them off to the side. They were just out and about. The wild turkeys we saw, they were just kind of milling about as well. So the kids were pretty happy with the wildlife, and they were pretty happy with, even though they weren't climbing trees like Sophie likes. Um, there were, wide spaces to walk around in, and the camp people were very knowledgeable. The camp hosts, but also the naturalists, they were very willing to help, and they were very accommodating with our 15 million questions about what plants were and things like that. So, um,
and there is a larger portion too of another section of the campground that does host groups. It's their pioneer camping area, and that's the last spot that we end up driving to here. But as you can see, even the staff housing, which was just off to the left there, is actually still inside the campground. And thanks for watching. We are Rolling with the Stones. And thanks for watching this driving tour of Stephen C. Foster State Park.